Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. David Hooper, and this is another episode of the Unstoppable Introvert Project. And today we've got something truly special, and I am so excited to welcome Adam Lord to the show. Now, Adam has an incredible story which we're going to dive into, from losing his mother quite young to becoming a father quite young, to working in a whole range of different jobs, to developing a thriving business, to MMA fighting, to firefighting, to football coaching, to all sorts of incredible things. And in terms of a transformational journey, Adam's journey is going to speak to so many of you. And Adam, I am so excited to welcome you to the show. How are you doing?
I feel pumped, feel excited, feel ready, and yeah, let's share my story really, and let's get out there. Let's help as many people as we can, and let's have that high vibe life.
Absolutely. And Adam, the way I always like to start these podcasts is a lot of our listeners are ambitious, and they maybe have trouble in their life, and they're trying to get better and stronger and achieve some incredible things. And the title of the show is Unstoppable Introvert. And I really want to know, what does unstoppable mean to you?
Unstoppable to me is mastering what I like to call the 4 pillars, which is mental, physical, financial, and spiritual health, and really hone in on what that means to you as an individual. So me focusing on my physical health has been part of my identity for a lot of years now. And looking after yourself and taking care of yourself should be paramount before you try and serve others, because you can't serve from an empty cup. The mental health side of it is when people truly master what's between their ears, which is our class is the most important real estate in the world. When you hone in and know who you are as a person, you become very deadly. And as an introvert, that is an unstoppable strength to have.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And before you carry on, we were talking a little bit before we hit the record button about that taking care of yourself and prioritizing yourself. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. So why do you kind of prioritize making sure you're on the top of your game before anything else?
For me personally, being a father of 4 children, I want to be the best father I can be. And being that is being able to go running with my children, playing with my children, being active, not being that person who comes home from work and just slouches in front of a TV because they haven't got the energy, or they're snappy, or they're crabby. And that transfers over to my relationship with my fiance Becky. Is like, how can I be the best fiance, what she needs, if I don't look after myself? Because I want to be the best version of me for them.
Yes, and I think a lot of people get that the wrong way round, and they think, I'm helping everybody, but I'm not in my best place. And then maybe some resentment almost creeps in because you're working your backside off for other people, and then you're not getting anything back, and you're not feeling your greatest, and all these different things. So I completely agree, and I think it's something that I struggle with myself in terms of putting myself first. What would be one tip for anyone listening who wanted to kind of prioritize themselves? What would you say to them? What would be one thing they could do?
Make time for yourself. People have this misconception that it's selfish to take time for yourself, but it is not. It is empowering. And when you take that time solely for yourself, because you give so much out to the universe, sometimes you need that little time for you, solely for you. And it's yours to do what you want with, whether you want to be the next world chess champion or whether you want to be the next hitchhiker. Find out what you love and solely do it just for you. And when you get a master at it, the confidence you get from doing that resonates into other areas.
On that, Adam, something that I've always wanted to do, but never allowed myself to do. Certainly, like in my 20s, when I was kind of grinding and being too hard on myself, really, and doing the exact opposite of what the absolutely correct thing that you're saying is like video games
Yeah,
and playing on the PlayStation and things. And so I'm like a 90s baby. So the PlayStation, like PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, that's like what I grew up with. So my
yeah,
wife
yeah,
and
yeah.
I found like a really old PlayStation 2. So we got this PlayStation 2, a couple of games. I mean, the graphics are terrible, but I've taken myself off and had like an hour on like FIFA 2006 or like a car racing game. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's like just an hour, and it was just like, oh, why haven't I been allowing myself? Because I came back to see my wife cheerful, like happy, and my better version of myself for sure. What's your vice that you kind of sneak off and do?
Well, I class me early morning training as my vice. I call it me prime myself for the day.
Nice.
So when I wake up in the morning, I have a set routine. I know obviously it's been a bit over glamorized, like a perfect morning routine, which there's no perfect morning routine out there. It's what works for you as an individual. And it's something I've honed in. So on a Sunday, I have a gaming session with my daughter because she's at that age now where she likes gaming. So we get the headset on, like we're going a game called Fortnite, which is like a bit of a battle royale simulator, and it gives me that time with her, and we connect and we talk, and she gives me a bit of banter, she gives me a bit of stick, and I'm like, whoa, like calm down. And then I also feel very protective of her because, like, when talking to other people and like, I'm like, no, it's like, she's my daughter. What are you saying? What? No, don't talk to her like that. I was like, that's my kid. But then it's so nice to be able to connect with her because she's 15 years of age now. So she's just getting to that level where she's learning about herself, and she's been questioning a lot of her sexuality at the moment, which obviously I've had to get my mindset around it and try to guide her and nurture her and not basically stand in her way. Because too many people will be hands up, no, you're not doing this, she's that. And it's like, well, you can't say that nowadays. Like, if I resisted, she'd pull away.
I want to ask um, a question then for
Yes.
those people who haven't come across you yet. Tell them a little bit about you. Like, who is Adam Lord?
Adam Lord is a very complex individual. For a lot of years, I've played a lot of different roles for a lot of different people. So when I worked with Alzheimer's dementia, I used to look after some amazing people, and every person needed a different version of Adam Lord.
Wow.
So Adam Lord is I recently got a journal, and I can't remember what article it was, but the bloke I was watching said, "Once you ever get a journal, on that front cover, open it up and write, 'Who am I?' and list 10 points of who you are in the brightest colours possible. So every time you open your journal up, you will reread who you are." So in mine, just a few off the top of my head, is I want to be a good father. So it's understanding how to be a good father. I want to be a good husband. So how can I be a good husband to my fiance? I want to be physically fit for as long as I can humanly possible, which is part of my identity now, and I appreciate every single time I can lift a weight or I can run. And I also want to be able to help in my lifetime 100,000 people. Is been my aim for a lot of years.
Very powerful. Very powerful. And do they affirm, you kind of affirm those thoughts every time you open that journal?
Every single time. Like, I don't know, like I say, I can't remember the bloke's name, but I thought that was like a penny drop moment for me. And like every single time, so every part of that list has got a completely different colour on. So being dyslexic, obviously, I find it challenging to read. So I challenge myself to read a chapter a day now. So, but having those bullet points, all different colours, it looks like a rainbow. So my eyes are just drawn to it every single time I flip that page. And
That's
it's, yeah,
that's so good. Yeah, it's so good. I think that is a great nugget for anyone listening. That's something I'm going to do. That is a great idea. And I think that it just brings you back. It brings you back. It anchors you to actually what are you doing? What are you journaling about? Are you on track? And I think with journaling, you do kind of sometimes, and I'm generalizing, you just kind of, yeah, I had a good day today, or this happened, but it isn't impactful. But if you're able to link that back to these are my 10 affirmations, or these are my 10 aims for who I'm trying to be, actually, how am I looking? Like, you can do a bit of a deeper dive, a bit of a deeper audit. Is that kind of what you're finding?
it really is, yeah. And second to that page, when you first open your journal, I've got the 1% guidelines. So any ideas, what I read, what I really resonate with, I write them down. And I circle them in different colours again. I love colours. Like, it's fantastic to keep it up here. So any little pearls of wisdom go on that 1%. And again, it's just that reaffirmation. It's that like, I might not read it for 3-4 days, and then I'll flick back through and like, oh yeah, I love that. It just reinstigates it back into my life, and I really enjoy it.
I love that. I really, again, love that little tip. But would I be right in saying, Adam, that you weren't always this well thought, mindful, really into self development type of guy? Or has this been something you've always done?
No, coming through my divorce and then being homeless, like I didn't have a roof for my children to come and visit me, and that was one of my lowest points where I got quite depressed. Where my best mate used to ring me 3-4 times a day, and then after my divorce, I got into another relationship, and she suffered with mental health issues, bipolar, and I tried as much as I can to help her through that. And then it just got too much, whereas I just couldn't do it anymore because she was putting me down a bad path. She was making me meet people who weren't going to be the most impactful in my life. Like, you need to find your tribe, and I knew back then it wasn't. So going through that depression and really focusing on what I wanted, who I wanted around me, I wanted a safety network of people who want to empower me to be better, not the ones who go drag me back.
Yeah, it's such a great aim again in terms of that network. So picking up a few of those, I love how you dropped a few bombs in that statement there. Let's pick up a couple of them. I mean,
Yes.
so I mean the one that always sticks out to me is the homeless. Tell us a little bit more about that, because that sounds incredible.
One of my ex-partners asked me to move in with her, which I did. And then the same day I moved in, she went through an episode. And then basically the police were called. And then I went into the back of the police car. First time I've ever really been in a police car. I showed them the medication. I've told them what was going on. Obviously, I've got experience with bipolar and the issues. And I was just sat there at the cop car at 2 o'clock in the morning. And the bloke spun round to me and was like, you need to get out. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, next time we come, we might not be letting you back out because obviously it's not the environment. Like, we're just seeing the outside of it. So I rung my mate up, went to my mate's house, and I spent 8 weeks on his sofa while I rebuilt my life, got a job, got a house. I went into my first flat, which it was really weird. I went to work that night. Then the lady I was working with, because I worked in care homes at this stage, her daughter was downsizing, so she had a load of free gear. So it was like light bulb moment. So I finished that night shift. I rung a man with a van. I was like, right, I need a van. I need to come get some stuff. Went round, met a gentleman, and got on with him straight away. He's like, Adam, I just want to help you. He's like, here's a flat, build it. And then I built this flat up from literally 3 fold-out crates, one full of clothes and 2 full of paperwork. and just rebuilt. And then that is the flat where I've met my current partner now, and she's really inspired me to push my boundaries further. And I'll never be that person back then.
Wow, that story gives me the chills. It's so powerful. And talk about turning trauma into opportunity. I think, there's so many things that we can take from that story. But I guess my question would be, it sounds great now looking back, as it always does. Had this trauma, it happened, but now I'm in a great place. I'm doing some great things. I've met a great partner now. What about for those people who are, maybe where you were back then? What would you say to those people when it comes to trying to turn your life around?
First thing, I would take a hard, long look at yourself in the mirror and understand what you're willing to accept, not only from yourself, but from other people. Because I used to try and be a people pleaser 100% of the time because I felt like I had to please everybody, but then I lost who I was as a person. With that comes your opportunity to build who you want to be. You've got to focus your identity on what you want to become. And how you're going to get there is the roadmap. So this Adam you see in front of you today isn't the Adam back then, but is the every single day of waking up thinking, you know what, I do not want to be that person. I know deep down in my heart, but the thing is I've closed that chapter. I don't dislike the person. I don't wish any ill being on the person. Like, the emotion side is gone. What I need to do now as a person is focus on being the person I want to become, being the guy I've wrote in that book, Who Am I? And focusing just purely on that and having the support system around you. If it wasn't for my best mate ringing me all those times a day, it's scary to think where I would have been, because we all know what happens. And unfortunately, like I've always said, kings look after kings, queens look after queens, and kings and queens look after each other. You have to see yourself as a king. As a human being, we are powerful beyond measure. We just have to control what's between our ears and who will let in there and who we can influence that. Because 9 times out of 10, it's the influence. Because when you're in bad environments, like obviously, for those who aren't aware, my mother, God rest her soul, she was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and that eventually took her life. Whereas if I stayed around that environment, there's a 99.9% chance that I'd have gone that way. But I knew back then that I had to make a change, because that's not who I wanted to be deep down. And who I wanted to be is what I've said in that journal.
Wow. That makes me emotional hearing that, genuinely. And I don't get too emotional, but that is so amazing, Adam. And what do you think your mum would say to you now, looking at what you've become and everything that you're achieving?
I hope she'd have been proud, and I hope it was cut too short. But then I've come to grips with that she made her own choices. My choices are very different. My choices are there to promote longevity, and I want my children to know that their father's going to be around as long as he can.
That sounds like a good goal, and I'm certain she'd be proud of you as well, mate, which is a testament to everything you're doing. And you mentioned a phrase there, and I've seen you post about it as well. Kings look after kings, queens look after queens. What does that really mean for someone who hasn't come across that kind of statement before?
I read something about a year ago all about spiritualism, and not in the sense of religion. Spiritualism to me is about being nice to the fellow kind and looking after those who look after you. And always, I've worked in retail, so obviously I've always been in the public eye. I've worked as a football coach, so I've always helped young, aspiring footballers. I've worked in care homes, looking after those with Alzheimer's, dementia. And everything I've tried to do in all those roles is trying to look after the person who's in front of me. And it's how can I impact that person? And how can I leave them better than I found them? And that's what I find spiritualism to me being.
That is a mantra. If everybody did that, the world would be a much better place. And it's a great message to share. I'm curious as to how this all kind of links together, because I think looking back at the things that you've mentioned and the types of roles that you've done and the mindset you have, I think it all kind of ties together. What were some of the lessons you learned when you were working in care homes? Because that must have been so enlightening, I guess, seeing these different people at the different stages of their lives suffering with different mental challenges as well. And how did that kind of shape you?
That reverts back to my previous statement saying playing many different hats to many different roles. Like, you're always going to get the ones you get on with really well. You're always going to get the ones you struggle with. But it's the ones you struggle with you learn the most from. Because you learn how to adapt to that person's care needs, what they likes, dislikes. So when I was working in the care homes, I made it my duty to know that person's likes, dislikes, what made them talk, what made them upset, learn how to defuse when they are emotional, and be able to pick up on those cues of when something's going to escalate or de-escalate, and then also not judge them. I think in the care world, there's too many care staff out there who blame the illness as the individual. It's what it's not. Like, you need to take your judgment out of that situation and think, how can I help that person the most? Whether it's the need a chat, whether it's a quick walk around the garden, whether it's just, how are you doing today?
No, absolutely. And I think, again, that's really, really an interesting perspective on that. And it's the illness, not the person, that's for sure. So changing gears a little bit,
Yeah.
in terms of what you're doing now, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
I work for my brother-in-law in a window fitting company. So completely out of my skill set. I wanted something completely new. So I've gone from walking, talking, to now using tools, power tools, taking windows out, measuring. The hardest thing I found is sawing in a straight line. Like, it's nuts. Like, I can put a window in, but ask me to saw in a straight line and it's not happening. Like, even I have things I'm not good at, but it's things you get better at. And then alongside that, I've just started my own online coaching business alongside Rob Sanders, which the guy is an absolute man, myth, a legend, and is someone I look up to.
I know I'm sick of hearing Rob Sanders' name on this podcast.
I know, right? He's, yeah. To be fair, he did give him a pretty good write-up.
He's all right. He's all right.
Like, good looking, a bit taller than me, a bit more muscular. Yeah, all right.
I know.
Just all right.
I need to delete that post before my wife sees it.
It's like something off Grindr.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, I mean, how's that working out when it comes to like the entrepreneurship side? Was that always an ambition, or was this something new?
As I've said, like, my aim is to help 100,000 people. I've made a close friend in the care home who was the master trainer called Michael Scott, and he's like into psychology. He's got numerous PhDs and he's done quite a lot. And he gave me the book The Secret,
Right.
and he wrote a message in it, and he's like, just remember, in care, how many people you've already helped.
Nice.
And I was like, wow. He's like, you're already on your journey. He's like, so My coaching business, I want to give people the tools to basically learn how to live a long, successful life. And once they've gained them and they can use them correctly, I want them to prosper and leave me. So I think in the industry, too many coaches just cling on to people far too long. And I'm like, just no, like, there's always someone else who will need our service as long as you come from the right place.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think that was something when I was in the health and fitness business. Yeah, there shouldn't be the ambition to hang on to clients, particularly, giving them the tools and then send them on their way is a really, really refreshing way to approach it, which is great. And when you mentioned The Secret then,
Yeah.
have you read that book yet?
It's on my to-do list. It sounds really sad, but I've bought a book tree this year. First time I've ever had one. And at the top of my book tree, I've got the first three I've read cover to cover, which I've never done being dyslexic, but I've literally forced myself to sit and read, and I've got to the stage. And the best tool I've found, and I know it sounds stupid, so anyone out there who suffers with dyslexia, buy a necklace with two lights on.
Oh, that's cool.
Because what that does is it illuminates the page. So when our eyes are drawn to the gaps between the letters, because the page is illuminated, you're more drawn to the word, not the letter. And that is a common sign and symptom of dyslexia. If you're looking at the gaps between the words and making pretty patterns with your eyes.
Wow. Well, that's another nugget to take away, practical as well. That's really interesting. And kudos on the reading. I was smiling when you were saying about the book tree because that's totally up my street.
It was £12 our last part. I was nuts for buying it. I was like, no, like, I want to fill that thing this year. I've never read so much in my life, but then just enjoying it. Like, I'm reading The Power of Discipline at the moment, and the Dunning-Kruger effect. I never even heard of it in my life, but then I see it all the time, and now I know what it is. I can't unsee it.
What is that? I don't think I've heard it or not of that name.
Literally, it's people who have all the qualifications on paper, but they don't merit up to it. So in the care world, I've seen a lot of managers who've got these qualifications, but they're not managers. And like now, I can't unsee it. Like I'm just walking around going Dunning-Kruger, Dunning-Kruger, Dunning-Kruger. I'm like, learn how to be a people's person first, because that in the care world, it's all about being person centered, and it's meeting that person where they are, not where you want them to be. And managers can learn a lot from those people who work that floor constantly, day in, day out.
What other books are on your list, or what other books have you read that have been decent?
I've done Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
I've done Level Up by Rob Dial. I find
Okay.
that guy so fascinating. His
Right.
mind is like next world. And then I've done the Diary of the CEO.
That's good for you. Yeah, that might be on my list as well. All of them actually. How do you go from just reading to actually applying what you're reading? Because I think, I could post, a picture of my bookshelf or whatever and be like, oh, reading loads of self-development books. This is I'm on top of it. But I think people collect books sometimes.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
How do you transfer the kind of the key messages that you're reading and actually implement them?
It's being able to teach others through what you've read. So for me, my learning style is being a kinesthetic learner. And for those who aren't aware of learning styles, if you go on, there's many different tests online you can do and learn what makes you tick and how you learn. And then I know it sounds stupid, but I've done so much research on the art of reading, like learning how to read, going back over. Like I know there's people out there who will have the physical copy in front of them, and then have also the audio book playing at the same time. And they'll get it at, I think it's 1.2 seconds. So it's slightly sped up than normal speech. So as you read and your eyes can follow what the words are saying. And because you're looking through ear and it's coming in through your ears as well, Like it sinks in a bit more. I know some people who highlight certain sections because you're not always gonna understand what's on every single page, but it's same as everything. Like you only get better by doing it. I know more about words now than I ever done in my life because I didn't want to read. I was playing football. Like only thing I was good at when I was younger was sports, so I just stuck with sports because that's what I was good at. Like I could kick a ball and I could run. And then after my football career finished, there was like my best mate was like, "Do you fancy mixed martial arts?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Come down here." So I went down there, and then stupidly, 11 months later, I'm stood in the octagon, and I'm like, "What am I doing here?" Like, this dude's walking towards me and wants to kick me. I'm like, "Come here."
Wow. Now that there's a bit to unpack there as well. That's some really, really interesting things. So for an introvert,
Yeah,
for an introvert being in an octagon about to do an MMA fight, how did you get to that point? There's so many different points that you've got to. How? Yeah, because that's quite a daunting thing for anybody. Never mind an introvert.
I was the quietest guy in that preparation room because all the way through my mind, I was like, "Adam, what are you doing? Adam, what are you doing? Adam, what are you doing?" Then I remember standing behind the curtain, and I'm all gloved up at this stage and got all the war wounds ready. And then they play my introduction music. And I've always had this ability to flick a switch in my head. And when I flick that switch, it's like I switch everything else off. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from, but it's my mental switch. And it's something what's carried me through many different challenges in my life. And when I went for my firefighter physical training, you get blindfolded and you get put into a little mouse maze, and they put your hand on the left hand side of the wall and tell you you've got to navigate it in 9 minutes. And I remember putting this blindfold on and being in this pitch black room with no noise and my hand on this left wall. And I'm like, right, go find your kids. And that was the flitch. That was this switch. And when I flick it on, it's game time. I'm not the loudest guy in the world. I'm not the cleverest guy in the world. But I've got consistent action. And I will not be beaten on a treadmill or the person in front of me. If they beat me, I will gladly shake them hand because they've earned it.
That sounds so powerful, and it's such a great tool to have to be able to get into that state where you're just high performing, focused, nothing's going to interrupt you. How do you get to that point? So how do you actually flick that switch? How can the people who are listening, who are like, I can't concentrate, I'm struggling to focus, I want my own switch, I need to build a switch, and then I want to snap it off. How do they get to that point?
Switch themselves off from external noises. So whether you need to sit quietly and close your eyes, then visualize what you are going to do and really hone in on that. And I call it a switch because that's how my mind sees it. So when I'm visualizing what I'm going to do or how I'm going to complete that task, I literally tell myself, right, it's time to switch. And because my mind has literally clicked that emotion to those thoughts, that is my go time. Like it is time to, when I play football on a Thursday night, I'm just recovering from an injury at the moment. My guys know that I will give them 110%, and I am fearless on that pitch. I'm intense. Because I flick that switch, I come back off, I am the nicest guy in the world. I'll hug everybody, I'll high-five everybody, I'll take a good game to everybody. But when you come to compete with me...
I love that. That level of ruthlessness is... I think some people think, oh, it's too aggressive, or I'm not that type of person. When actually being a high-performing person, you have to have that ability. Otherwise, you'll crumble under pressure. You won't be able to perform. You'll shy away from opportunities. You'll be in a bubble of nerves or anxiousness or stress your whole life. So having that ability to flick that switch is so powerful. And I love what you're saying about you've kind of anchored it to different thoughts or words almost, and you can get into that state. Something that I used to do, which is similar but different, and I've played around with anchoring quite a lot, but something that I always did was reframe as if I was somebody else almost, or ask myself if this other person was in this situation, how would they approach it? And
Yeah.
that would then be like, right, I'd be more focused, I'd be up for it a little bit more, I'd approach it a little bit different. So I think there are tools out there that you can use, but it's just a case of kind of training yourself to do it and then actually doing the action, don't you think?
100%, and it's what you get comfortable with. Like, so many people, it's like, I can't do that. It's like, why? Because you've never done it before. Nobody's a master first time they've done anything. So when I went from working in a supermarket to working in a care home, I said I'd never be able to look after anybody. And 10 years later, I'm well known for looking after people with Alzheimer's, dementia, and I like the people in my care home come and seek advice from me and how I've handled a certain situation.
You've mentioned that you're dyslexic a few times,
Yeah.
and you've been through these different challenges, divorce, homelessness, which are huge life events. What strategies have you found most effective when it kind of comes to overcoming self-doubt? I'm sure that going through those different traumas and also suffering from dyslexia, I'd imagine you doubt yourself at times, or used to. How have you overcame that to keep moving forward?
I think a lot of it is what we've already previously discussed. It's about being comfortable in who you are as a person. And for me, there's always self doubt. It never goes away. But what I'm always prepared to do is give stuff a go. And whether I'm good or great at something doesn't truly matter because I've still given it a go.
I think that it's something that a lot of people will struggle with, self doubt. I think it's one of the things that, as an introvert, is if I had to put maybe a tagline or like a key phrase, like self doubt is one that pops up in my life a lot. It's popped up in people I've coached a lot and work with, that sort of thing. What is it that those people can do to truly accept themselves and go, you know what, this is me. This is who I am. Like, take it or leave it, because that is a hard place to get to.
It's very tough, and same as I can flick the switch for my challenges, is the same I can flick that switch with the negative people. Like, I'm very quick to cut people off who drain you because I ain't got time for it, and it's basically focusing on you and prioritizing you. And the self doubt, like I say, I don't think it ever truly goes away, but you need to understand that there's nobody who can judge you. Like, I don't get judged by anybody because I don't feel judged. If I do something wrong, I accept I've done it wrong. I understand what I've done wrong, and I know how to improve next time.
I think one of my biggest learning curves was accepting myself. I would definitely kind of put that, because for a while I would put people on like a pedestal and
Yeah,
try and please them almost, and not be myself. I went through this period of my life where I had a job where a lot of it was older people had a job. So I was a lecturer
yeah,
at
yeah,
university basically, and I dressed like a 40 to 50-year old. And I woke up one day and I was like, what? Why am I doing this? Why am I trying to fit in and dress differently and act differently? I was very careful about my language, and I everyone swears, but it was like, I was like auditing my life to be this person that I wasn't. And then it just got to a point where I was thinking, you know what, these are my ambitions. This is who I'm trying to be, and if this isn't the environment that I can be myself, it's not the right environment.
No,
But to get to that point, it does take a bit of work.
100% agree. Yeah, and I think it's something you're always evolving on. I don't think you ever get to that end point. Like for me, I don't feel good, which is obviously the physical side. I like to obviously have my mental side strong, which is obviously paramount. I like to dress well. My daughter says I don't dress like a dad. I don't know what a dad's meant to dress like, but apparently I don't dress like a dad.
I,
I
I
think
think
it's
I I think I dress like a dad. That's it.
just like I use a company called Father and Son because I like their clothing, I like the t-shirts, I like the way they fit. I feel comfortable in my own skin. I like
Nice.
people who turn around, like the amount of people who can't believe I've got 4 children. They're like, you don't look old enough. I'm like, sound. It's like my moisturiser working and my hydration's working. Like, I was like, you've got 4 kids? I'm like, yeah, I'm divorced as well. I was like, what? How old are you? You're not, you're in your 20s. I was like, no, love, I'm in my 30s. But like, I'll take that.
I'm really glad you brought that up because that was on my list to ask you about. So yeah,
Well,
the 4 kids,
yeah,
which is commendable, and
I need a bigger
congratulations.
TV when I was younger.
And you had your first at 18.
Yeah, I was a young dad, yeah.
Yeah. Now that is amazing. And
It
tell
was
us, like,
scary,
I was going to say, was that a shock to the system?
massively. And that time, obviously, going through like my mother, like I was drinking heavily and I was just wanting the right place. And then my ex-wife, she literally knelt outside of the bed. Then she used to bite her bottom lip when she had something serious to talk about. And then she's like, if you don't sort yourself out, you won't see or be part of it. I was like, oh shit, like this is real. When I held my daughter for the first time, like that first time, those first cuddles, you will never, ever, ever get back. And I realise now that when I worked for Tesco's as a night manager, I missed out on so much of my daughter's lives because that nightlife is not a family man game. And now I'm kind of making up for it, like being a bit more present, being a bit more active. Like I have a WhatsApp group with my daughters, and it's phenomenal. And I message every single day. Like it's a bit religious. Like, how are you doing? Like, I want to be part of it, whether they've had a good day at school or whether they've had a bad day. Of my daughter's test results are like, obviously she's coming into mocks. Like, so having 2 boys and 2 girls, we've got a great dynamic.
How does being an introvert affect being a father then? Because I don't have kids, but how does that affect it in a good way or in a bad way?
I think being an introvert, like you say in multiple of these podcasts, like, it is an absolute superpower because again, like you just prioritize things differently. So for me, like I don't need to go out. I don't want to go to the pub. I don't want to go to a nightclub. I don't want to be around all the hassle or the drama. What I want to do is be around the ones who I love the most, be present while I'm with them, and have the most impact in their lives. So my daughters, bless them, when they come to start having the time of the month, I was one of the people that spoke to her, like one of the first people. And to have that as a father, like, is a massive pat on the back.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Did you imagine you'd be having that conversation as a 16-year-old?
Ah, no, like becoming a father and then having those conversations now, like, I won't take them underwear shopping. There's still little girls in my eyes. So I send my partner. She can do that. Like, not for me. Like I have my limitations, but what I will do is I will speak to him and going on this self development growth journey I'm on now. Like it's amazing how much knowledge and wisdom I pass on to them, and like they can get into the game a lot earlier than what I did. And I want them to be fiercely independent, know who they are, don't accept anything. Like I know who I am and I know what I'm willing to accept, and that's what they're gonna be brought up as all the way through. The only thing I don't regret, But my partner now, Becky, she's part of my why, and she's also part of my identity, which you can't change your past. And I'd never want to, because my ex-wife, she's a fantastic mother to the kids, but our journey was obviously ended a bit differently. But now it's us coming together mutually, benefiting them. So whatever happened between me and her, that's gone. Like, switch it off. Don't let it impact them. Then guide our kids.
So powerful words again, which is really, really cool. And I'm sure so many people are writing so quick down their notepads, or they're on their treadmill pumping their speed up and all that sort of stuff. It's all really good. And I'm just thinking about, when I asked this question because I feel like this when I walk the dog, and I'm not comparing my dog to your four kids. When I'm out and I see other people and I think, this other dog parent might want to have a conversation, or what if something happens with the dogs and I have to go and sort it out or whatever. How does that work when it comes to being an introvert as a dad? And you've got to take the kids to like a party, or they're playing at a kid's friend's house, or that sort of stuff. And is that another mental kind of barrier you have to get over, or was that just part of the deal?
I've always had this expression, 10 seconds of courage. So doing
Okay.
anything for 10 seconds, and after that 10 seconds, if you don't feel comfortable, move away from it. If you do feel comfortable, lean further into it. And when I used to work as a football coach, we had to do like presentations for like fundraising at times. And I remember my first ever time, I was sat in front of this panel, and there's like 12 people, all mixed ages, all mixed like people. And I actually sat behind the whiteboard, and I'm talking to him from behind this whiteboard because I was like, nah, I can't do this. And the guy who rung the group, he kicked a football to me. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, put your foot on that. I put my foot on the football. And he was like, dink. I was like, so what do you want to know then? He's like, because it took me back to what something I was comfortable with. Everything else. And it's like that 10 seconds of courage is so powerful.
Yeah, I can't remember the actor who said it. If you want to work out, but you don't want to work out, go and work out for the first 3 minutes. And then after that, you can stop if you want to. But no one ever stops because you're in it and you're onto something, aren't you? So yeah, that's similar, which is really cool. Speaking of exercise, and you've mentioned this a little bit at the start, how important is that to you for being your best self?
It's paramount. Like, when I am physically fit and I'm at my best, I feel my best, I look my best, I smell my best, and I act my best. When you prime yourself and you're comfortable with who you are and your own identity, there's nothing out there which can scare you. Nothing. Like, we are on this earth to change it and make it better before we leave it. And if people don't remember who they are, they'll never get there. So the first challenge for anybody watching or listening to this is sit down, work out where you want to go and who you want to be, and understand what that looks like. Write it down, bullet point it down, who you want to be, how you're going to get there is the roadmap. There's no special science to it.
And to link that kind of back to exercise, something that I've heard is that there's this new breed of person almost, especially if you're an entrepreneur, and it's an athlete entrepreneur. So I think kind of research is finding that people who are crazy successful as entrepreneurs, they're also like starting the day with exercise and getting their mindset right, and it's now like this package deal. Whereas 10 years ago or whatever, you'd see, and I'm generalizing, but guys in their 50s in suits with big guts, heart
Big
problems,
bellies, cat,
yeah, all
sat in
that
the
drinking
corner,
loads.
smart. And you can, like, it goes back to the old expression, the kings and queens. Like, how does a king walk into a room? It doesn't have to be the loudest, does it? He's not though, is he? Like, you think a king walks into a chamber, like, he's not the one making the noise, it's his fanfare. And then he'll go talk to people. So a lot of the conversations I have with people, the quiet conversations, like I could walk up to people, like working in retail, working in care, I've been used to talking to every person. If I lock eyes with you, that's the problem. I will come over and I'll say hello, because it's taken me years to get to that position to where I can just walk up to anybody. I went to Fit Expo last year in Manchester. Never been to Manchester in my life. Went to the big fitness convention. And I thought, right, this is an opportunity for me to network and meet some people who I can help, or they can help me later down the line. And only thing I'm going to do is say hello. That 10 seconds of courage. Take that first step. Even as an introvert, like walking up to this some of the biggest blokes I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, how are you doing? All right. Not the loudest, but I still make that conscious effort. Whether they was happy to see me or not, at least I've said hello.
And how did that go?
Oh, it was phenomenal. Met loads of people. Like, I did calisthenics, which I've never really ever done. So I ended up having a workshop. I think there was about 100 people watching us, and it was just mint. And then right next day to them, they had like the pride stand. So I went over and started that into them. I was like, some people are a bit scared. I was like, well, nah, like, everybody's human to me. Like, it doesn't matter what path people are on, because they're on their own path. I will not judge someone else's path, because I'm going to stay in my own lane.
I think something that you mentioned in that story is really important to try and nail down. One of the big problems being an introvert, and I definitely speak from experience here, is eye contact.
Yeah,
So I'm a devil for it, like walking with my head down so I don't get engaged, so I don't have to have a conversation because I'm uncomfortable. That is something I'm terrible at, and I should and will do better after this podcast, I promise. And I'll tell you how it goes.
good. I'll hold you to it.
How can you help those people who are like me then? Like those people who don't want to make eye contact, don't want to go and talk to some. Maybe it's someone who wants to go and ask somebody out, but they're too shy or too scared, and they're just like, oh, I want to take that next step. And I've been to a fitness expo in Birmingham in 2013, so I know exactly the busy environment, overwhelming environment, jacked up guys everywhere.
Yeah,
And others and ladies as well, for
yeah.
sure. There's some incredible physiques. How did you get to that point then, where you were you could go over to someone and be like, "Hi."
One of the most important pieces of advice I've ever been given in my life is, what advice would you give to your children? And why aren't you taking it?
Wow. Okay.
And that was probably the biggest penny drop I've ever had in my life. So if I'm willing to tell my children that they can succeed or be anything they plan to be in life, they just need to take the opportunities. Why aren't I? So when I did my PT qualification, the amount of times I told myself I was not good enough, I can't do it, like slogging my heart out. My tutor, he had the moody Adam, he had the angry Adam, he had the Adam who was like, no, this isn't for me. What do you mean that answer's wrong? No, you're not telling me right. It's like, well, no, like, own your shit, understand people are just trying to help you. What advice would you give to your children or your best friend, and why aren't you taking it?
Well, it's a bit like that reframing almost. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's easy to give advice, but it's hard to follow that exact same piece of advice. And is that what you did then? You
yeah,
thought, you know what would
100%.
I do?
100%. When I walked into those expo doors and like literally just massive expanse in front of you, I'm like looking around at different stalls. There's a few people I recognise from social media, a few people I've messaged, a few people I've like reached out to, because that's also a different way of connecting with people. Like yourself, like Rob. Like a lot of the people who are out of my normal social circle, I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to see how they are. Purely because I can. I've got the access. If they reply to me, great. If you want to build a connection, awesome. If they don't, I've still messaged someone. Because that links back to that spiritualism about trying to help the next person.
Yeah, it's hugely appreciated also, by the way. There's some posts where you've liked it and it's made my day, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I can keep
You
going.
and Laura, like going off for that marathon, like kudos to Laura, man. Like that's why I wanted to send that message, because I was like, do you know what? Like coming from the East Coast, like we're miles away from each other, and I'm like, I've seen it, I've clocked it. Well done.
Absolutely, yeah, and it was really appreciated, and I know she really appreciated it as well. So you can tick us off that list, that lot, the
The
100,000
100,000
list too,
people.
yeah, which is
I don't even
super.
know why I stuck to that number, but it's some of what I've had since my
Well,
early 20s. 100,000 people.
I think that number's gonna 10x easily after this for sure, because yeah, a lot of people are going to be interested, mate. You're dropping some absolute bombs. So, talking like more generally then around
Yeah.
like being an introvert and how we can challenge them. What do you think are some misconceptions about being an introvert, and how do you think we can overcome those kind of misconceptions?
I think people confuse me with being an extrovert, and I think it's because in certain situations I can be a bit louder than normal. But I'm actually quite a reserved person deep down. I like my own space, I like my own company, and I prioritize the ones I spend the most time with. But then in certain situations, I have to be the other person where I need to put a different hat on. And that's when, like I say, the other person comes out. And it's always nice to have me. My granddad always used to call me Jekyll and Hyde. He's like, you've always got two people inside you. It's mint. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, because when it comes to going for after something, you will do. But then the other side, you are that fun-loving, quiet dad who just wants to come and play a board game, or I love having a cuddle with the missus on a night instead of going to a Larry pub. Don't be
Abs-
afraid to be both. Like you can have parts of being an extrovert as an introvert, because it's those part of being like going to the expo, being able to hold eye contact, being able to talk to people. That is a little bit more extrovert, but then you need to play best of both worlds.
I mean, I use the term unstoppable introvert on my podcast, but I think it's almost like the different environments that you find yourself in. Somewhere
Mm,
it's more about maybe confidence at times,
yeah,
certain situations, so for me, for example, I would class myself on paper as an introvert, but I've been captain of every football team I've ever played in. I'm the loudest in that environment.
yeah.
So, but on paper, those two things don't necessarily add up. But I think, yeah, it's absolutely, you're right. You kind of figure out where you fit, and as long as you're able to recharge your energy in certain situations and then be the best version of yourself, it's all about being high performing in those different environments, whatever the labels kind of say. So yeah, I think that's really, really important. And do you think being an introvert has ever held you back and stopped you getting opportunities or stopped you progressing?
Massively. When I went to Tesco's, that's a supermarket, by the way. Plug them in there. I uh,
Yeah, nice sponsored.
I put like a bit of a glass ceiling on myself because I got to the sign off. And I remember sitting in front of the guy who was signing me off, and he's like, Adam, can you tell me about this? I was like, nah. He's like, Adam, can I tell you about that? I was like, nah. He's like, Adam, what are you going to tell me? I was like, not a lot. He's like, well, I'm going to have to send you back on placement for another 6 months. I was like, sound. Even though I could have done it. So my family suffered financially because I couldn't get past, I couldn't see myself as a manager. I got addicted to saying I was a trainee manager. Because all my life I got told I wouldn't be good enough, being dyslexic, like being that middle level, never really rocking the boat. And then I was like, I'll never be that person who will hold myself back. So every interview I've been in, again, I try and leave every room better than I found it and every person better than I found them. So whether I got the job or I didn't get the job, which thankfully I've never been turned down for a job, I've always finished off saying, I respect any decision you make today, but I'm just grateful for the opportunity.
I think that you do get into that mindset of I'm not good enough. I can't do this, and you self-sabotage, and it's something really important. And there's this story that Ed Milet, who I really like, talks about, and it's you've got to be aware of the he calls it the temperature of your life, like the thermostat. And what that means is when you start to do some good things and the temperature's turning up, be really aware of things like self-sabotage, because you kind of go and turn it back down and you go back to where you were and you think, hold on, why am I not progressing anymore? Because you've stopped seeing yourself as, doing the right things. You're getting in your own way, almost, like it sounds like you were doing there. So I think that's something that, a lot of introverts are probably guilty of.
And it goes back to the previous statement we made, like nobody's a master the first time.
No.
Like we're not. We're built to learn and fail and succeed.
Yeah.
Like it's the only way you will ever achieve anything. Like I say, the different hats I've worn, I've never thought I'd be a football coach. I never thought I'd be a firefighter. When I went for me firefighter physical, right before that, I actually had a operation on my shoulder. So for love and money, I was laid on bed. I had my arm in a sling. And I thought, right, I'm off to apply. I was like, why? I was like, 'cause what would I tell my kids to do? Like, you've always fancied doing it, right? So I go up to the local fire station, I knock on the front door, this guy opens the door, he's like, can I help you? I was like, yeah, I'm here to sign up. He's like, can I just tell you something? I was like, what? He's like, your arm's in a sling? I was like, oh, it's sound. He's like, how long is that going to take to fix? He's like, I've been told 16 weeks, but I'll be here in 12. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I've been very blessed to have a gentleman called Peter Lilly, who's my sports therapist. He's been with me for 8 years. Like, I see him every single month without fail. And he looked me in the eyes. He's like, Adam, I'm going to fix you. And you're going to go, but you're going to do me proud. So I went over to Hull for the physical examination. And they was going through my records. I was like, Cadet Lord, can we have a chat with you? I was like, yeah, what's up? I was like, where was you? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, where was you 12 weeks ago? You was on operating theatre. And he's like, they've partially reconstructed your shoulder. They've cut through 2 front rotator cuffs. They took your left bicep off and reattached it. And you're here now. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, come on then, show us what you got. It's like, sound. I was like, I had to flick that switch. Heard of that Future You website?
I'm not sure. What? Maybe.
You can write a letter to yourself on this
Oh.
website, and then we'll send it back to you in an email in 6 months' time. So anything you want to achieve over these next 6 months, get it written down, and then 6 months from now, you'll get a personal email from yourself, and you can compare what's actually achieved in those 6 months to what you've actually written down. And I always think now, what would my future self be happy with me doing?
Wow. I am doing that. Honestly, I'm doing that as soon as we finish tonight. That sounds so good.
Like how, like,
So
just
good.
email yourself, like, what does it look like in 6 months for you? Like, obviously your podcast will grow and you'll get many more supporters. And it's like, where do you see yourself in 6 months?
I already kind of had a tingle of accountability. Oh no, what if I, like in 6 months, what if I haven't?
Honestly, like, now, like, I have so much. I want to change my family's life. Like I said about my family history, like my children will never know any of that. And I'm taking my life to break that family cycle. And then I want my children to be multimillionaires by the legacy I leave them. And when you start thinking of legacy and identity, it no longer just becomes about you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of my big whys, the main whys, very similar actually, has been to give Laura like an incredible life. And it's, yeah, you don't want to get out of bed in the mornings when it's cold, whatever, gets you out of bed, doesn't it? So that why is so powerful. And I'm aware of the time slipping away, but I've got two questions.
Yep.
Well, I might sneak a third in. We'll see. And this is a bit of a tricky one, so don't worry. I can always cut this out if you can't
No,
kind
it's
of
fair.
haven't gone. What's one question you wished I would ask in this podcast, but I haven't, and how would you have answered it?
With me, my biggest struggle has been consistent action for long enough. I used to think of like, where would I be in a week's time? But then I've started moving my mindset to the next 24 hours. Would you say that was the smart option?
As in trying to smash your next 24 hours rather than your next 7 days?
Instead of beating myself up, if I'm good, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the Thursday, Friday, Saturday goes off the rails, and then you think, all right, Sundays, that's my pre-preparation day. Is it better to focus your action into the 24 hours or focus on the week?
I normally would say focus on that first little step. So the combination of lots of tiny steps leads you to a massive goal. So if you're able to smash your 24 hours and get that right first, then that might then lead you to consecutive 24 hours, which will then lead you to your bigger goal of the seven days. But they all kind of link together in terms of like having a destination's really important, because otherwise how do you know where you're going? But then definitely focus on those like small daily wins. That's the thing I always go back to. And you can have bad days as well, don't let them turn into like a long weekend or a week. Or that was something that I've tried really hard to improve on. So my thing used to be minor inconvenience, right? That's the month ruined.
Yeah.
Whereas now I try to be a bit calmer and kind of a bit more logical rather than being reactive. So yeah, try and be that logical, smash this next 24 hours, get back on track. And what would you say?
I've very much the same. I feel better since I've been focusing on the 24 hours and then taking it each day at a time. But like you say, those days and those wins mount up.
Yeah.
Then I'd rather focus on every day being good days and then coming back from the bad days to make up a solid month in consistent pursuit of not perfection, but progress.
That's going to go off, so I'll just pause that. Yeah, consistent progress over perfection every single time. And that constant massive action again is the thing. Like that's the thing that's gonna get you to those 100. I think, like I said, it's gonna be 10 times that soon. But those 100,000 people, that's for sure. And that's coming. Last question, Adam, because I do want to be respectful of your time.
No, yeah, like
What's next for Adam? Professionally, personally, what does the rest of 2024 look like for you? Your business, what does that look like?
I'm currently studying my level 4 in nutrition.
Great.
Which opens up a few different avenues. I can start looking towards working with the NHS, or I can continue to build my brand. My brand itself is a very funny one because I want to find my people and bring my people on board. So I find myself at the moment saying no more than I'm saying yes, because some people I just get a bad vibe off. I don't think they're going to do the work. I don't just want to take people's money. I want them to be better. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my own morals to achieve that. But then I don't know if I'm hindering my progress doing that.
But yeah, when it comes to your business, yeah, I mean, I've never really been for the like just take everyone and like take their money and run like I'm like you want. And I think what you're doing is the absolute right decision, and building that group of people. That I love that phrase, tribe, community, where you can make a meaningful impact that align with your values and your identity and your purpose. That is amazing to get out of bed for every day. So yeah, it sounds to me like you're doing the right thing for sure. And with that in mind, and shining a light on everything that you're doing, where can people find you? What are your social media handles? And yeah, how can people get in touch with you?
I like to keep my Facebook quite private, so anybody who wants to look for me on Facebook, they'll probably be able to find me, but I don't accept a lot of people because there's a lot of my family stuff on there. And yeah, I like to keep that quite switched off. But my Instagram is Coach Adam Lord, or Coach Adam Lord. So going through a bit of a rebranding on there at the moment because I want people to see a bit more of an authentic self. So last year there was far too many topless pictures and not enough content and substance out there. So I spoke to like an online brand manager, and he was like, Adam, I was like, I really like you as a person, but what are you portraying here? A guy who stands in front of a mirror, gets his little 4/6 pack out, squeezes as hard as he can, and then takes a picture. So for those who do stumble across my post, have a look deeper than the actual picture, because what they will find is a lot of meaning behind the picture itself, and that's what I want to create.
I love that. I think that's some good goals. Growing the business and building your brand, and that those foundations will pay off. In 6 months, in 2025 for sure, when you've got this new avenue of nutrition and things, and all those different options as well. It's so exciting, mate, and I'm so grateful for your time tonight. It's been a blast. It's been funny. It's been deep. It's been emotional. The dog's kicked off. We've had a power cut, and honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't thank you enough for your time.
Honestly, it's been mega. Like, it's something memories will last a lifetime. And like I say about being present and having meaningful conversations, and it's ticked all those boxes. You're someone I've been wanting to get hold of for a while now on a more personal level. I think we've absolutely smashed that tonight, and I applaud you for who you are. And honestly, truly, deeply, you are appreciated, and don't ever forget that.
I appreciate you too, man. I genuinely do, and yeah, this is just the start of our collaborations, I'm sure. So, yeah, again, thank you so much, mate, and everybody who's listening. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Unstoppable Introvert Project. And remember, being an introvert isn't the thing that will hold you back. It is the thing that is going to catapult you towards greatness. Until next time, stay unstoppable.